वो हो गया ना लॉगिन वहां से?
लिंक भेज दीजिए मैम।
हाँ, एक मिनट।
मेल कर रही है ना?
हाँ, मैं कॉपी करके व्हाट्सएप पे ही कर देती हूँ, जीमेल से कॉपी हो जाए। मानस, उसका लिंक भेज देना ग्रुप पे जल्दी फट से, क्योंकि मेरा इसमें जीमेल नहीं खुल रहा है। या अभी जो मीटिंग होनी है उसका लिंक दूसरा है ना, वो जो लिंक है उसको उस पे शेयर करो। Dear participants, I welcome you all to this second session of day one. Our expert speaker of the session has also joined us, and within 10 minutes, the lecture will be starting. There are certain things which I would want to discuss and share with you all. One of them is that it has been observed that many of the participants have not joined the inaugural session. So I would want to make it clear that, you can excuse yourself at the most from 2 sessions. So out of 14, at the most, you can skip 2 sessions. In other sessions, you are required to make your presence marked on the Google Meet. So while this Google Meet, meeting is going on, the lecture is going on, please do make sure that you join us for the meeting. At the most, you can skip 2 lectures, and for those 2 lectures, we have made the recording available. But if you miss more than 2 lectures, then you would not be completing the required attendance. and then it would be a problem. So we would want the experience to be really enriching and fulfilling, and we would not want any inconveniences, to you all. So please make sure that you are attending all the sessions, and I can assure you that the all the sessions would be really informative and enriching and useful to you all. Now I'll hand over the mic to uh, yes, wait a second. Okay, yes. Some of the participants had their concerns regarding the language. So I would want to, say just one thing in this regard, that we have participants from across the country. So we have participants from South India, we have participants from Central India, Northeast, and then everywhere. And then we have participants who are, from Hindi subject also. So at times it would not be possible to keep the lecture 100% in English or 100% in Hindi, but we are aware of the problems of all the participants and we are trying to address them all. So majority of the times the mode of communication would be English, but at times you have to bear with it if it is in Hindi. हेलो हेलो जी। सेंट्रल ऑफिस में आपने वाइस चांसलर सेक्रेटरीट देखा है? तो वो मेन ऑफिस में जो पीछे वो है वीसी का ऑफिस है, नया बना लाइब्रेरी के पीछे, वो देखा है आपने? एक मिनट। यूटीडी जैसे आप जब आते हैं यहाँ पे, तो सबसे पहले जब आप गौर मूर्ति पे पहुँचते हैं, यहाँ पे गौर जी की स्टैचू है, उसके बाद लाइब्रेरी की तरफ आते हैं।
मेरा तो माइक्रोफोन ऑफ रखो.
A very good afternoon to you all. It is a moment of gratification and privilege for me to introduce you all the speaker for today's afternoon session, Dr. Nivedita Maitra. She is the professor and the head of the Department of English and Other European Languages at Dr. Hari Singh Kaur Central University, Sagar. She also holds the headship for the Department of Urdu and Persian Languages from the year 2017 onwards in the same university. She has spent nearly 30 years offering the best and right skills onto her students. She is a great counselor in the teaching profession. Her groundedness and integrity to always
मैडम कैमरा ऑन कर लीजिए.
Her groundedness and integrity to always support her students and scholars is unmatchable. Undoubtedly, we can say she has indeed produced a generation of scholars that are strong. I truly feel grateful to acknowledge that Dr. Maitra has motivated and inspired us all in all walks of life, and she will surely continue to be a model of strong stimulus, brilliance, and finesse in future as well. Speaking of such eminent persona, I wish to add more jewels to her crown by notifying that Dr. Maitra had previously been the registrar of Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Central University from the year 2016 to 18, Director UGC HRDC in the same university from the year 2017 to 19, and also the convener Internal Complaint Committee for the same university since 2019 onwards. Her areas of specialization and research have been women's writings and South Asian literature. She has had two international publications, including SARC Cultural Center, 2 chapters in books on topics such as globalization, consumerism, and empowerment of women in India. She has also put her valuable time and effort in organizing 3 national seminars in the Department of English on cultural history and violence in postmodern history. Under her guidance, 13 students have been awarded the doctorate degree since the year 2000 to 2020. Currently, she is imparting guidance to 6 scholars. To add more to her credit, I would like to apprise that Dr. Maitra is also the life member of Indian Association of Commonwealth Literature and Language Studies and of Indian Women Association. At the university level, she is the member of the editorial board of Madhya Bharati Journal, reviewer of the journal Dialogue from Lucknow devoted to literary appreciation, member of the Executive Council, Academic Council, and the Board of Studies for English at Dr. Hari Singh Gaur University and other universities as well, naming Barkatullah University, Bhopal, and Pandit Ravi Shankar Shukla University, Raipur. We will now proceed to attend her lecture on communication skills and effective teaching. On to ma'am.
Ma'am, could you kindly please unmute yourself? We are not able to listen you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I begin with a very big thank you to Dimple Dubey, Dr. Dimple Dubey, for giving such a generous introduction. She has been my student, and my students, indeed, they really love me. And maybe they have exaggerated during my introduction. But nevertheless, I'm very happy. And I really heartily thank her for this generosity of hers. I thank the convener of this workshop, Dr. Vandana Rajoria, for inviting me for delivering a lecture and presenting my views. Indeed, I have 30 years of experience of teaching, and I have a certain love for teaching. Particularly, I have taught to many of the students who are not directly linked with the English literature department, and off and on they have come to me for various kinds of guidance, and so I feel that there is in this field something which I can share with you all. I welcome once again all the participants, all the teachers who are present here, all my scholars. The topic that has been given to me for delivering the lecture, interacting with you, is communication skills and effective teaching. If we see, communication starts from the mother's womb itself. We have a very famous story of Abhimanyu, where he was in his mother's womb, and he learned the art of entering a very complex military strategy, and right when he was in his mother's womb. So we thought that this was only in the mythology, but today in the medical sciences also we see that much work is being done, and we know that the babies are not only able to produce a variety of cry melodies, they also opt to produce their own particular patterns, because what they have learned in their mother's womb, they seem to imitate that and reproduce it once they come into this world. So communication is something which we are consciously or unconsciously constantly doing. Consciously, when we are using the verbal media, and we are using sound and a particular language, a common language which the sender is communicating with the receiver. Non-verbally, when we are using various other forms, like we are using gestures, we are using our facial expressions, we are using our body language, what we in general call the body language, that is the way we move our hands, we move our head, etc. All these things have something to convey. They are conveying important message. And this message that is getting conveyed is what we call as communication. So knowingly, unknowingly, consciously or unconsciously, we are constantly in a state of communication. We also communicate through the written medium, and also through the visual medium, for example, through paintings, through pictures, through charts, diagrams, etc. So we cannot escape communication. Now, our topic is how to make this communication effective. How and when does communication become effective, and why is it necessary at all to make communication effective? There are certain reasons, or there are certain aspects which we should imbibe in us, and which we should nurture and cultivate in us, so that when we start communicating, it becomes very effective in the sense that the receiver who receives that, the messages, the ideas, the feelings, he is able to process it and understand it. So communication is not only passing an information, but it is getting through with that information, with that message, and that is very important. Now, what are the criteria for making a communication very effective? My own experience says that what is very important for us, how to make a communication important, because as teachers, when we go into the class, or as teachers when we are facing a sizable number of students whom we have to address, our own clarity of thought is extremely important. So I would place clarity of thought as a first essential of an effective communication. What do you mean by the clarity of thought? It's a question that when, as a teacher, we enter a class, we have to bear in mind that why am I here? What is it that I have come to deliver? So this question why is very vital, because if we are able to answer this question why, that why am I here, we get a proper direction to our future, mode of communication. The next thing is the fixed objective. What is it that I have come here to convey? This objective should be very clear in our mind. So the first thing is the clarity of thought on the part of the sender, that is, we as teachers, because we are in the same profession. So the first thing is the clarity of thought. The second becomes the fixed objective. The fixed objective means that what is it, for what purpose I am here? What is it that I wish to convey? So this what is another very important question for us to understand. The third is the organic presentation, the organic structure of a lecture. What I mean by this organic structure of a lecture is that how do we arrange our thoughts? In what logical order have we arranged our thoughts? How we have started, from which point have we started our lecture? How we have developed the thought further on? And finally, how do we bring our lecture to an end with a positive note or with a fixed goal that we have set for ourselves? The next important point would be the brevity of the language. Language is extremely important. Unless we give a lot of attention to our language, our presentation, our teaching would never be very effective. So language is very important. Now, how to use this language? Because when, as a teacher, we enter the class, we have a certain restriction of time. And within that time, we have to finish or we have to convey a lot of information. So for doing that, it is very important that we become very precise and we become very straightforward in the way we make our presentation. If we use jargons, if we use very ambiguous words, if we use words with connotational meanings, then there would be a lot of ambiguity, and this would not help in the listener to understand what exactly we are trying to say. The next point, which is, I feel, the most important point, is the assertiveness of the teacher. What is meant by this assertiveness? As a teacher, you have to have, what is your duty? What is it that you are trying to do as a teacher? You have a particular way of thinking. You have a particular, line of thought. So when you enter a class, you have to take your students along with that, and you have to take your students along that particular way of thought, and you have to make them agree to the way you are thinking. That will be your success. As for the success of the teacher, you see, that's why your own conviction is very important. Your own confidence is very important. And this makes the lecture that you deliver most effective, and the students also appreciate you because they are able to understand and they are able to flow along with you in that particular line of thought that you have taken during your lecture. Many a times assertiveness is confused with aggressiveness. Assertiveness means that where you are very patient. It is not that you are imposing your ideas on your students, but it is something where you are making your point clear so that the student also, he agrees with your way of thinking. And that is the main success of a very successful delivery by a teacher. The last thing would be the initiating students' response. Since it is communication, it is a two-way process, where the teacher is also, conveying a message. But the most important thing is that whether this message is being positively received by the listener or not, and whether he is able to understand. So the understanding part comes when he is able to respond. Now, a successful teacher and a successful effective communication is that when this response is initiated, and the student becomes not a passive but an active participant in this way of, or in this form of communication. So these are the important aspects in which we base our in which we base a lecture, and we try to make our communication very effective. Now, why do we call it a skill? The word skill has been associated with it, and why there is a necessity for developing this skill within us. Now you see, communication today in this very competitive world that we are living is no longer just for establishing contact with our students, or not just for conveying the message that we have for our students, but it is also a means in which we have to establish ourselves, because it's a very competitive world. And if you are not able to convey your message forcefully with a lot of conviction, you will not be able to move on in this field, and your recognition will not be there. So it is very important for us to understand that these are the ways in which we can nourish or develop our means in communication. Today's time is a very a different time. In the previous years, in the yesteryears, you see, the teacher-student relationship was a very different relationship. Education was imparted in a very different manner, where the presence of the teacher, the entire personality of the teacher, had a lot of influence on the students. And this teacher was able to draw the attention and make the student form his opinion the way he wanted him to acknowledge. So this was it needed to establish a rapport between the teacher and the student. Now the situation has changed drastically with the coming of and advent of the new technologies. The way economy has entered into every field, education, the institute of education is no longer free of this advent of the new technologies, and the effect of economy on the entire organization of the institute of education. So you see, in today's time, we are moving away from the classrooms, and the physical classroom is now becoming redundant. It is becoming sort of irrelevant, and now there are open classes, now there are online classes, where you see sometimes you are not also able to see the teacher when he's making his presentations. The presence of the teacher, the influence of the teacher, the personality of the teacher has very a minimum role to play. What has become effective is that what is the content of the lecture that is being delivered, and how beautifully it is presented. So this has taken precedence over the actual personality of the teacher. What is now important is that how much focus you are giving on the other paraphernalia associated with the presentation. For example, how is the setup? How is the, the light on your face? How is your sitting position? How is your standing position? How is your voice modulation? These things are gaining more and more important, and that's why we have started calling it as communication skills, because these are skills which have to be developed. You have to understand that to convey your meaning, to convey the message that you wish to give to your students, along with the content that you have, most important part is that how the method of conveying that message. So for the method, you have to develop certain things, certain skills, and that's why today the word skill has got associated with communication. So communication is not just merely the conveying of your message, but it is the whole methodology, the whole paraphernalia that goes along with it in for making your presentation. There's a very important, interesting paper which was published in spingerlink.com. The title of the paper was "Innovation in Higher Education. Will there be a role for the academy in 2025?" You see, it is with a question mark that the paper has been written. It was published sometime in 2014. In this paper, the researcher has focused on the innovation management of higher education as a sector. Now you see, education has become an organized sector. It is no longer, the type of institution as it used to be in the earlier years. The paper seeks to, diverge or enter into a focus into the future of higher education, and he takes the 5 parameters in this. One is that the funding in the universities, the ownership and the exploitation of research, the provision of good teaching, and the potential missing link of social innovation development. So these are parameters on which the researcher or the writer has tried to highlight in his paper. According to him, the writer, that is Peter Howard, he says that the history and legacy of universities can make them resistant to change. So much of technology is coming into the field of teaching, and the teachers are, every day they have to adjust themselves and equip themselves with the new methods of teaching. So this is creating a kind of a pressure on the teachers, and somewhere down the line we feel that the whole purpose that was there initially in the method of teaching is coming into a sea change. So what will be the future of the universities? There are certain universities which are based on the traditional way of teaching. Will these universities fade away? Will these universities have no importance or no stand in the future? This is a very important question that we have to understand. We have these notions of academic freedom, academic identity, and the nature of research have allowed those employed within the academy to develop a privileged view from what is often metaphorically known as the ivory tower. Now, the industry is questioning that, right? Industry is questioning that what is the utility of this research which is being done in the universities, and a serious view of the university, administration is also taking place, where they are trying to bring, a collaboration between the universities, the institutes of higher learning, and industry. So you see, teaching at one time had a different purpose, had a different goal. But today, somewhere down the line, you see, economy is playing a very vital role. And all the strategies that we are developing in the educational organizations is now getting based on the way the economy is going to work. So teacher is no longer remaining merely a teacher, but he is becoming a facilitator. He's becoming a facilitator, and he is becoming sort of a performer, because his first goal or first duty is towards the organization in which he is working. Slowly the state-run universities are getting more and more replaced by the private universities, and the private universities, private institutions of higher education are playing a very strategic role in this whole gamut of education. So academic freedom is being curtailed. There is a lot of thought on the academic freedom. Why I'm mentioning all these? Because all these have our effect on the methodology of teaching. As teachers, because of these changing scenario, we have to accommodate, we have to become more flexible towards all these changes which are coming into this field now. The essence of academic freedom is founded on the will of the academic to carry out research of their choice. And the idea of universities being places of research is a residual of the university's origin. Research, whatever you want to do your research will now become, irrelevant. It will be the industry who will dictate you that what is that field of research which you're going to take, because after all, the amount of money or time that is being spent on doing your research should have a certain economic value. It should bring back, or place you in a different economic field. Universities therefore have to be as rigorous in their approach and strategies to innovations as they are to the research and teaching, if they are to adopt this mandate, and failing to adapt and adopt, we will see institutions losing their future students and research base to those who are demonstrating success in this area. So as teachers, we really have to gear up. We really have to understand. We really have to, take a lot of cognizance of what is the present scenario, how this present scenario is changing very rapidly, and how then we have to align ourselves, adapt ourselves to all the new circumstances that are, presenting today. It is becoming increasingly important for universities to identify their distinctiveness from other higher educations, and so to the providers in the future. Further on in the paper, the researcher says that knowledge economy policies are currently very powerful drivers of change in contemporary university approaches to research. They typically orient universities to a national innovation system, which both positions knowledge as a key factor of economic growth and sees the main purpose of knowledge as contributing to such growth. So you see, research, your daily courses of education are now extremely economy oriented. The question is that what is the utility of imparting an education which is not bringing a kind of social change, which is not bringing a kind of economic change in the country. Now, every country is vying to become the power hub, and knowledge definitely is going to play a very important role. So how this knowledge is to be channelized, how this knowledge is to be made as the tool of power in the coming time is the focus of the university administration, as well as the governments of all the countries of the world. The universities can also take something that start out as an innovation and quickly turn into something anodyne. We can see this in the much trumpeted push for the universities to embrace the concept of the massive online courses. So you see, MOOC courses have come. They are the present you see important ways of teaching. As we said that we are moving away from the confinements of the classroom, and the world is opening up for the students. So it has been initiated through this massive open online courses. Now, initially these courses were very well received, and the conveners of these massive online courses, they were given almost a hero worship. But as time is going by, you see, the people feel that there are complaints now by the students who say that through these courses, MOOC courses, nothing much is being conveyed. Only it has been repackaging what is already known, rather than encouraging the creativity and innovations. So these two terms have now come into existence. One is the creativity and the other is innovation. So today the teaching method is not only limited to learning. Here it is not what to learn, but here it is how to study, how to think, so that you as a student can also add to the wealth of the country. And innovation is being given a lot of impetus, a lot of importance. And the work of the teacher, that's why becomes manifold, where he has to, through his teaching methods, he has to initiate that creativity, that innovation in the student. Much of the rhetoric around knowledge production and generation is discussed in terms of product and position. And the given assumptions are that the focus throughout the report is on the academic workforce, with some mention of the professional workforce in terms of the new hybrid roles that are emerging. This has been deliberated as it is in the academic workforce that differentiates a university from any other organization. And this recognizes the flexibility and adaptability within the technical, administrative, and professional staff groups within universities that may not be so prevalent among academics. Consideration of the total workforce employed would detract from the specificity of the sector scenarios. So the public academic champions of the MOOC, around MOOC when it was established in 2015, saw some of the top universities, top 25 universities, adopting these methods. Now we have two very concrete examples in front of us. One is the teachings that are being done through MOOC, and that is the massive open online courses, and the other are the TED Talks. If you have seen the TED Talks, the type of fanfare, the type of glamour that is associated with that, these things are changing the whole way the lectures are going to be delivered in the future. Online courses have this economic value because the student teaching has moved from teacher-centric to the student-centric, the learner-centric. It is, the whole world of learning has opened, the whole world of information has opened to the students, and the student can choose what he wishes to choose, right? Though it has a very positive aspect, because the student can move globally. He can choose from courses which are globally available to him. But on the other hand, you see, what we were talking initially, or in my previous time, I was telling you that the personality of the teacher, the way the teacher molded the thought of the student, that the rapport that the student and the teacher established between each other, which helped in a lifelong relationship and a lifelong learning. It was not learning just the the subject matter, but it was so many other things that the student was learning when he was with the teacher. That somewhere is taking a very backstage. And though the world is opening up, but somewhere that interpersonal relationship which the student felt with the teacher, or the teacher felt with the student, which was a lifetime relationship, that is no longer necessary. And probably in the future that will totally diminish and go away from us. This will lead to certain emotional problems also. Today we are talking and we are running courses on emotional quotients. But how to develop this emotional quotient? Because when we are in the class, you see, your attitude, the teacher's behavior, the teacher's eye contact, his own body language had so much to convey to the student. Similarly, the student's eye contact, the student's attitude had so much to convey to the teacher. Now, when these online courses are taking place, there is a disruption between this emotional flow between the teacher and the student, or the student and the teacher. So somewhere new pedagogies have to be developed, new orientations have to be thought of, so that this form, the way of delivery of the lectures would have greater meaning in the future time. Today, much of the rhetoric around, the knowledge production and generation is discussed. In terms of product and the position, innovations that are, that the new ideas are going to generate. However, the elements of process of innovation and paradigm innovation are arguably the areas where the university could make a unique contribution if it were in a position itself differently in the future. Universities have a privileged position in the society that allows them to challenge paradigms and the ways in which we behave unlike any other institution. They do not have the responsibility of the government. This leads to the question that what really would be the value of the universities in the coming time, and the time when we reach the 2025 years. Further on, what is important for us to understand is that what sort of, changes in the organization or in the methods of teaching should we adopt. Today, we are reducing the lecturing and emphasizing on seminars. See, the way seminars are being held all over, the way the webinars are being conducted, this is definitely opening various avenues. But if you read the new education policy, we will see that the lecturing has been reduced to a very sizable, percentage. The teacher and the learner is expected to go actually in the field to understand the topic that he is undertaking, or the processes that are prevalent today in the society. So it is not based just on sitting within the comfort of the classroom and listening to lectures and developing your thoughts, but the focus of teaching today, the focus of the teaching learning process has taken a drastic change where this method only of lecturing has been kept at bay, and more importance is now being given to practical teaching, where the student actually has to go into the open field to learn what he is supposed to learn and to develop his own creative thoughts over there, so that not only the creative thoughts, but he would get the proper, initiation for bringing a social change. After all, the whole purpose of education is to bring a social change, bring a change where the society needs certain kinds of improvement. So this will be brought about only through different methods of teaching, and this is a new way in which these teaching innovations are now being proposed in the new education policy, which was initiated long back, and most of the foreign universities had adopted that. In India, it has come, and in the future, it is going to be implemented with a lot of force, so that the students might be able to learn the more practical aspect of what is being taught to them. Next point would be seeking more appropriate formula to quantify teaching workloads. See, we have divided the courses. We divide the course in certain credits. When a teacher is to teach a particular topic, he has to assign a particular credit. That means the number of hours he is going to spend in teaching that. So this has also being formulated, and it is not left on the will of the teacher to spend the time that he wishes to spend on a particular topic, but he is restricted within a certain period that he within that limited period he has to convey whatever he has to convey. The next point would be moving from the individual teacher to the teaching team. You see, initially individual teachers were more important, but now a teamwork has been initiated, and wherever the conglomerates are being felt, and wherever there is a lack of any teacher in a particular institute, it is said that he can always take the help of other institutes, and this way this gap can be fulfilled. So these are the new paradigms, the new ways in which the teaching is now going to take place. Experimenting with new teaching rules. The new model emphasizes that there is a need to take into account the fact that not all teachers can or should do the same things. One needs to imagine a situation where teachers with different profiles each carry out a different set of clearly defined teaching functions: lecturing, tutoring, authoring, even in relation to the same subjects. So in future, we might see that a student of one institute, taking classes or courses of some other institute, and because a teacher of that, a subject expert of that particular subject is available in some other institute. So he is not restricted to remain within the confines of his own organization or his own institute. The world is opening to the student, and the world is opening also to the teacher, where through these online courses, it is not a limited number of students who are going to listen to the teacher, but he can reach out globally to innumerable number of seekers of knowledge. So you see how this entire ways of teaching are now taking a different turn, and how then a teacher has to adopt himself to the adopt the new technologies that are coming, and how he is able to effectively use this. That's why the word skill is being associated, because once all these things have, all these things are taken into consideration, then the teacher has to decide that what style he would adopt, how he would perform, because his performance will be now evaluated, and according to that evaluation of his own performances, he will be he will be able to ensure his career and the future of his institution where he is going to serve. So serving the organization is also a vital point, and his own future will depend upon how he is able to use the various technologies and how he is able to make himself more useful to the organization, and how the organization will benefit in terms of economy through these teachers or you see the facilitators, because a lot of information is already available on the net. How this information is being organized and being reproduced and reconveyed to the seeker is the question of today's time. So along with all the essentials of the skills that are necessary for the teacher today, I would add another important skill, that is performance. He is no longer a person who is passively sitting and conveying, but he has to add dramatics also, so that he can hold the attention and he can bring a lot of glamour to the way the entire communication might take place, and this will add to the success of the teacher. So the future is both very bright for both the teachers as well as the student, and also it is full of questions, because only the future is going to prove whether the new methods that have been initiated and adopted by the teachers, whether they have really proved to be worthwhile. The foreign universities have already conducted it, because they have already moved into this field, and it is now about 10 years that they are into this field, and now what they feel is that going back into the ways in which teaching was imparted initially, that used to be the best methods, in which the teacher and the student had a very close relationship, and that had a very great impact on the student, and the performance of the student definitely increased. With the more and more ICT coming into the teaching methods, we see that it is adding to a lot of pressure both on the teachers as well as the students. The expenditure is also moving, and the way in which the students initially used to gain knowledge, now they have to spend tremendously in gaining that same knowledge. So all these things definitely are going to churn up in the future, and a lot of researches will take place whether these methods that are now being adopted, though these are the demand of the time, and we cannot do, particularly in the time when we cannot move out from the houses, the children cannot go to schools, colleges, they have no other option but to stay within the precincts of their house, but the study is going on. There is no stop in the flow of the imparting of the knowledge. This is the demand of the time, but whether this demand of the present time will become a new norm for the future, only the future will be able to tell us. I hope I have been able to convey the idea that I wish to convey to you. If you have any questions, I would definitely like to answer.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for imparting with such great knowledge about communication skills and the newer technologies that we will be tackling in future as teachers and students also. There are certain questions that were being asked during the session that was going on. One of them was, what is the importance of research in teaching learning process?
Okay. Yes. Um, teaching is the the research is the foundation, is the very essence of teaching. You see, what do we teach? Ultimately, those researchers who are doing great research and writing books, publishing their papers, the views are taken from there and the textbooks are getting prepared. So without research, you see, there cannot be any knowledge bank. And so researches definitely are very important. Unless researches take place, there cannot be an evolution in thought. There cannot be a process of the development of thought. So researchers are the backbone. Without it, we cannot have any teaching or learning process.
Thank you, ma'am. One of the other questions that was being asked was how to make online classes effective.
This is the problem of today, that we have to conduct the online classes, and we do not know whether the student who are listening to us are actually present during the lecture, or they have just logged in and they have moved away. So to make our teaching effective is that you have to bring the students, you have to involve the students into this teaching learning process. You see, communication is not a one-way process, it is a two-way process. So when you are delivering a lecture, it is very important for you to ask questions, to make the students also respond to what you are teaching, whether they agree with your thought or whether they disagree. As I told you that assertiveness is very important. Assertiveness is the confidence of the teacher. Now, whatever you are saying, it is not necessary that that student will agree with you. He might disagree with you. He might have a different opinion from the opinion that you are expressing. So this two-way process is very important for the success of any class and in delivery. So to ensure that the students are actively participating, because you don't get a feedback by because their presence you cannot see on a screen. They are not available, so you cannot see the reaction, whether they have understood, whether they're taking interest, or whether they are bored with the lecture, or what is it. So when you ask questions, when you involve them into a kind of discussion, then everything comes out and others also participate, and through this peer discussion, many points automatically become clear. So for making this online class effective, it is important to make the students participate even between your lecture, so that you can ensure that all the students are present and they're actively listening to whatever you are saying.
I deem it a great honor and privilege to express my heartfelt thanks to Professor Nivedita Maitra for bringing out the importance of communication skills and guiding us to the various important junctures of communication, which will help us to be more tangible and implicit with our words and body language. The presentation will certainly help us all, the listeners, to be more careful with their content skills in their communication. I thank you,
I thank ma'am
again for the comprehensive about the teaching models and paradigms. Thank you, ma'am, once again.
Thank you so much.
With this, yes, ma'am.